We'll leave that alone. Well, this lesson's a little different. Back in the past, I have occasionally written articles that I sort of lumped together in one category called Letters to My Children. It was on a variety of topics that seemed to occur to me, and I fully expected my children on my demise, or my grandchildren someday, to paw through back some of my old writings and come across these. So far they haven't done that, but I decided to put one of those, at least, I may do some more, into a lesson. So it's a little bit different, a sort of lesson, and perhaps it'll be beneficial to all of us. Look with me over in Ephesians. We'll use this passage as a text to begin. Ephesians 4, and we'll start reading about verse 14. It warns us that we should henceforth be no more children, tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine by the sleight of men and cunning craftiness whereby they lie in wait to deceive. But speaking the truth in love may grow up into him in all things, who is the head, even Christ, from whom the whole body, fitly joined together and compacted by that which every joint supplieth, according to the effectual working in the measure of every part, maketh increase of the body unto the edifying of itself in love. That edifying of itself is to build one another up. When I wrote this article, I commented to my children that they have had an enormous blessing of spending their entire young lives with one terrific congregation. That's this one. Not all preachers' kids had that privilege and had to move around a bit here and there. Got to meet a lot of interesting people. But my children had the benefit of being throughout their life, their young life at least, with one church, a church filled with good people. And they should have seen, as a result of that, some of the blessings that pertain to that sort of thing. There develops, in a small group, a caring and a closeness, and that should increase our love and concern for one another. People that you've known for decades, really, grown up with, seen their children grow up. I don't see Rick tonight. I think he was mumbling about some illness or another this morning, or his mom's illness. But I remember when I moved here, this shows my age real bad. When I moved here, Rick was still a teenager. He was about 15 or 16, and here his kids are grown and just about gone. So it's been a privilege. You can't hardly realize that it's passed so quickly. But it's a tremendous blessing. It was a blessing, I think, for my kids. You know, the associations that we have with people are oftentimes very shallow. You know, we just see one another and we talk about sports and, you know, Heidi there, we have a little trouble remembering people's names because we barely say hello to them. We don't care about them very much. And there are people who sort of prefer it that way. They seem to like to live inside their shell and don't want out of it, but most people are not that way. And so being together for all these years has allowed us to get beyond that shallowness. You know, if this were a church of 1,000 people, there might have been some shallow contacts and people you barely knew, or, you know, you saw way over there on the other side of the building, maybe once in a while. But being in a small group has been a real blessing, I think. Uh, we don't take the time sometimes to know people. It's like working in a retail business. And, do you really get to know any of the people that come to Hardee's, girls? You see them in there. One or two of them are probably in there every day, and you sort of get to know them. Or I know Jessica back there is working in the bank now. Do you really get to know all those people who come up and want change for a 20 or bring in their bus load of quarters for you to count out? I don't think so. You just say Heidi and you smile and be pleasant, whatever the training was, and you go on from there. But it's important to get to know folks. Our entertainments stifle conversation. Let me just say this. If you want to have a date with somebody, you young people, girl, Elena, Evan, the worst place to go is to the movies. If you're going to get to know your boyfriend, you do have boyfriends, right? Not a chance. Okay. You do have girlfriends? Ooh, we got a winner. We got a winner here. Well, the worst place to go is the movies. You sit there in the dark and, you sort of hold hands after, about the middle of the first date. You try to sneak that in somehow or another. But you don't talk. You sit there and watch, people get shot or some smoochy movie that your girlfriend made you go watch. And you don't have any conversation. And we sit at home and we watch TV. My wife was really irritated last night. I told her, I said, okay, we got 3 minutes. It's a commercial. What do you want to say? And we just don't have a conversation. And all of our entertainments are like that. Ball games, if it weren't for the commercials, we really wouldn't get to know one another at all. We'd just sit there staring at that screen. Well, it's important to get beyond that in life. You have to talk to people to know them. You have to listen to people to know them. You have to have a conversation. And I wanted and want my children to know about that. You have to be willing to talk to folks. There's an art to caring about people. It's not just a soundbite, really. You're not born with that ability. Did you know that? Or the Lord wouldn't have commanded it. The Lord doesn't command you to eat. He doesn't have to command you to breathe. He doesn't have to command you, except for the little children, to go to the bathroom every now and then. It's just sort of automatic. But caring about people is not automatic. It's something you have to learn. And there's an art to it. Knowledge about people comes by listening. You got to learn to listen. That's what that passage said just a moment ago. Or at least, no, that's one of the passages we're going to see in just a minute. You have to listen to people. Most folks really like to talk. Did you know that? They like to talk. You do too. But you already know everything about yourself. Is there something you're uncomfortable with that you have to just blab out to everybody? I tried to talk to my children. Really, all those folks you want to talk to, they're really not that interested in you. So shut up and listen. Do a lot of listening. Don't waste a lot of time talking about yourself. There's not a lot of point to that. Do a lot of listening to other people. You know all about your stuff, don't you? So you don't have to talk about it over and over and over. Unless you feel obliged to brag about all of your exploits. In the case of this letter to my children, exactly what you accomplished in your sophomore year of high school. I was reading my obituary in the Faith and Facts magazine. We put a little old blurb about each author, and I was reading mine the other day. Oh my goodness. I'm still talking about what I did in high school, of all things. For goodness sakes, who cares? That's a long way away. But so don't talk about it. Get the other person. Get them started talking. You'll be amazed. They love to talk. And listen to them. Now, some of the ways that you get them talking is by asking questions. It's amazing. It's just easy. You ask questions and listen, and they will think you're the most terrific conversationalist there ever was. You haven't said anything much except, "Hi there, how are you? How are things going?" And you sit back and listen to how things are going. It's sort of amazing. They'll think you're terrific. You'll discover that there is more than another placeholder there. And they have thoughts, and they have hopes, and they have loves, and they have dreams, and they have memories, just like you. You know, my mother always tells me I should quote her, and so I put this in quotes. This was this morning on the way to church. She said, "You know, it's kind of amazing. Other people have lived too, haven't they? They've had exciting things happen to them. Actually, some of them fairly interesting. In a world 50 years ago, 75 years ago, that you don't know anything about, the world's changed since then. Why not listen to it?" It's important to learn to listen. That is most part, 90% of caring about people. You know, in the process of this, there's some topics. Here's some topics you can bring up. It's just amazing. Do I have to tell you how to do this, kids? Where did you meet your husband or wife? My goodness, just stand back and let them talk. They'll tell you all about it. Where they were, what he was dressed in, what she was doing, how they met. Did they meet out at a meal somewhere? Were they at school? Wherever they were. Where did you meet? You don't have to say much. Just stand back and listen. It'll be interesting to you, I dare say. What kind of hobbies have you got? I just had one of those Alzheimer's moments. Sister Cooksey on the back row. If you will ask her about her hobby, you will be there a while. If you go visit her, you will be amazed at what she does. And you can do that with most of the older folks in this church. Did you know that? It's an amazing thing. Just get her started talking. What kind of hobbies have you got, Thelma? And she'll tell you that she refurbishes hundreds of dolls. She really regrets the fact that she's in a really small room now. She had to get rid of most of her dolls. If you ever went to visit her before that, the room was covered with dolls. And right now she's making jewelry, by the way, pretty nice jewelry. She gave my wife a bracelet. My wife, who never wears jewelry, I saw her after church driving home, and I said, "Where'd you get that?" She says, "Well, Thelma made that and gave it to me." I said, "Well, you look nice in that." I was trying to encourage her, but it gives me something else to buy on holidays. But ask them about their hobbies. What kind of music do you like to listen to? It's probably not grunge, and it's probably not some of that awful stuff these days, but what kind of music? What kind of music did you listen to when you were young? What did you like to listen to? That's a simple question. People talk to you a long time. Tell me about your kids. Oh, just stand back. What about your grandkids? And they'll talk and talk and talk. Well, you don't have to say much. Or where are they going to school? What are they doing? You get to see them very often? What kind of work do they do? Talk, 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 talk. You on your end are listening, listening, listening. Because it's not all about you. It's about them. And about caring about them and their lives. Show me some pictures. Oh my goodness. Anybody you go to visit, and you should go to visit them, there's pictures all over the house. There's pictures all over the apartment. Let them show you. They want to talk about it. Here's my husband. Here's me back in, 33. I used to be good looking. And they were. And you go, wow. I've actually had people tell my mother that. Grandma, you used to be good looking. That's sort of a backhand compliment, but anyway. Yeah, they had a life too. Why not listen to it a little bit? You'll find that it's just about like coasting downhill on the bike. You don't have to pedal much. Just you do the listening. Just use a few things to get them started talking. And you listen to it. You don't have to pedal. And it can go on for a long time if you're coasting downhill. Learn to prod. Don't be always the one who has to be telling about yourself and your stuff. As I said, nobody cares too much about that. What was it like? What was it like living on the farm? What was it like in going through the Great Depression? What was it like in World War II? What was it like in the 50s? What was it like somebody's going to ask you, what was it like in 1980 one of these days? And you're going to say, when did I get old? Surprise, surprise. What was it like? Tell them about it. What was it like? What was everybody else doing? What was everybody doing then? Tell me about it. What was going on in the neighborhood? What was going on in the country? What was happening in Vietnam during that time? What was it like? What were you thinking? All of that's way past history for most of these young. My mother, and I tell a story. This is another one. My mother's been begging me to work this into a lesson. During the Second World War, somebody from down in her community was in the South Pacific during the war, and he wrote back home, and he asked his mom, said, tell me what's going on. Write me a letter every day and tell me what's going on. And his mother wrote him back and said, well, there's nothing to say. It's just sort of the ordinary stuff. He says, I don't care. Just tell me how many eggs the chickens laid that day. Just tell me about home. Sometimes it's not important. It's just important to get it said. A lot of people don't care. They just want to hear in tough times and in tough places, they want to hear about home. Sometimes just the ordinary stuff. These are important things. You might think about them just a little bit. Let's think on, you need to realize that an awful lot of people are trapped. If you're going to a nursing home or an old folks home, or if you're older and they took away the keys to your car, mother, soon to come. If they took away the keys to your car, you're just sort of trapped. Your health has failed. You don't get around as much. And everybody's heard their story that they know. Everybody in their generation has heard it. They lived it. And so there's nobody left to tell it to. You be that one. Nobody seems interested, in the rush of the new day. Everybody's running around looking at their hand on Facebook. And these folks don't know about Facebook. They don't know about those things. But they have a story to tell. But nobody wants to hear it. Everybody wants to be remembered. Everyone does. You be the one. And that telling those old stories and telling about their youth keeps them alive, helps them remember it. You have the ears, not the mouth. You have the ears to make that happen. What happened then? Tell me about it. Have they told it to you twice? Listen to it twice. Smile and nod at all the right places. Don't tell them, hey, you told me that already. They're a little forgetful. Maybe they'll add something in that they didn't get the last time. Prod, and maybe you'll find out. But they're trapped in that situation. They can't hardly get out of it. They're in a place where they can't move much. They have to get rides to church. they feel compelled to worship, they're going to feel like that's a nuisance to you. Did you know that? Try not to make it painful. Try not. Yeah, I know you'd like to not have to mess with them and get there quick, but don't let them know that. Try not to make it painful to them. Try to make it interesting. A lot of people have been housebound. Why not take them to that restaurant you're in an all-fired rush to get to Beat the Baptist to after church? Why not take them out? They've been stuck in the house all week eating Meals on Wheels or something worse. Why not take them with you and see how that works? Before long, you'll feel like you're driving the bus for the old folks home. And as a result of it, you're having a ball doing it. Just start listening. It'll be interesting every time. You need to realize that. Just don't complain too much at first before you find out how much fun it is, how interesting it is. It isn't what's going on in your hand, and it's not on the screen on TV, but there's a whole world you didn't know about. And you'll be amazed. I've heard people say, oh, grumpy old people. Of course, not myself included in this. Nothing, Daniel, behave yourself. We're not referring to me here. But have you ever wondered why they're grumpy? Have you ever wondered why some older people are a little grouchy? Well, first of all, they don't feel very good. But you might try listening to them. It's been my experience that most people are grumpy to get attention, just like your kids. Now, you don't have to tell them that. You old people, I'm sure that's not true of you. But most grumpy people just want you to pay attention to them. Try doing it. Why not give them what they really want? And that is your attention. Give them some. Are you too busy? You might find that grumpiness sort of disappears. They're too proud. I know pride's a sin, but I can't think of a better word to stick in here. They're too proud to scream out in a room that they are lonely, afraid, and no one is acting like they like them or love them. So pay attention. Pay attention. Get them started talking. You might find that grumpiness goes away in the middle of that. Involve them in things. Is there something wrong with that? Ask questions. Say, what do you think about this? My kids are I'm trying to think about where my kids should go to school. Your kids are going to start school and you're trying to decide whether you should send them to this school or that school, or whether you should move and go to another school system, or whether you should, if you're wealthy, you can send them to a private school. Or if you're dating, should I go out with Larry or Joe? Should I get married or not? Ask them their opinion. What do you think? They have opinions. Now then, you can listen to them. You don't have to do it, but you can listen. Their grumpiness, you might find, will disappear. It'll work at least as well as complaining about them being grumpy. Why not care about people a little bit? And it's been my experience that some people are not only grumpy, they're nosy. Somebody says, well, what business is it yours work if my kids go to school? What do you care? You get to make the decision. You get to decide. Why not listen to somebody else's opinion? Let them keep them informed. Let them feel like they're involved. We really don't have that many secrets. There's not that much of a private life we have. We're not guarding the crown jewels, So it's okay. Let them know about your life. What's wrong with that? Let them know what's going on in the church. We're not guarding any. There's really not many secrets in the Lord's church or in our lives. Ask questions. Ask him things like, what's your opinion about this? Maybe something in the news, maybe something going on in your life personally. What do you think about that? Who should I vote for in this next election? Believe me, they'll have an opinion. Ask their opinion. Have you noticed any problems with this? Did you have any trouble with this when you were raising your kids? Have you ever thought about asking about those things? That'll keep them going for a while. If you just ask those questions, sort of stand, it's kind of like that bike going downhill. You're going to find out they got a lot of opinions about a lot of subjects. They know about the problems. What they really want, remember, that's why they're being nosy and why they're being grumpy. They really want attention. They want somebody to notice them and talk with them and to value their opinion. You can keep the private things, what little there is you're desperate to keep private. Keep those to yourself. And after all, you can make your own decisions. You don't have to do what they tell you to do or what they advise. You can still listen and make up your own mind. You're capable of doing that. Of course, they'll get to say, I told you so when you mess up. But they'll feel that you are listening, that they have your ear, and that you value their opinion and thoughts, that they're not old placekeepers anymore because you care about them. And it doesn't have to be the old. It can be the poor. It can be the Spanish speakers. It can be the English speakers. The Lord came to this earth to be a servant. This is all about being a servant. Were your T-ball exploits really that worthy of notice? Every now and then my grandkids drag me out to those things again. That is just awful. Jonathan, yours were wonderful, terrific. It's just like a punishment. Stab my eyes out. But why did we all go, parents? Because our kids needed somebody that felt like they were doing something important, and we bragged on them, even though your kid was the one in the outfield that was looking the other way and playing with an anthill and had thrown his glove down on the ground. Way to go, Junior. We want them to feel successful and important. That's why you do it. It's not because the games are interesting, for goodness sakes. We're not watching the major leagues here. Come on. You don't ever outgrow that. Did you know that? We need the same thing from our husband and from our wife. We need to feel important. Like somebody thinks we're successful, that we're needed. So what's wrong with giving it to them? What's wrong with giving it to them? It's needed just as much as the little kids. We need the same thing from our parents when we're 35. Nathaniel needs to hear every now and then, good job, Nathaniel. And Dave needs to hear every now and then, good job. And every now and then, we need to hear from our children. All of my kids, of course, were up last night, and they all spent the evening laughing at me and at one another for all the silly, dumb things I did raising them. I don't remember half of them. I think they made it all up. But all parents need to hear every now and then, thank you. Thank you. Even if the kid's 40 now, they need to hear, I appreciate it. Just like you did when you were playing T-ball, or when you brought home some abstract drawing from school and your parents said, ooh, what great art. I see you have potential. What is it? If we needed If we need it, other people do too. Learn to care about people. That's part of caring about them. For many people, caring is like some soundbite on the evening news. Well, I told you thank you. I told you thank you 20 years ago. Nothing's changed since then. I told you I loved you back then. Yeah, you'll have to, I'll let you know if anything changes. Oh, thanks just the same. I might need to hear it a little more frequently. If you need it, so does everybody else. Why not give it to them? Is it going to kill you to let that happen? Caring isn't some mushy sentiment at a traffic lights that can be done and be quick about it. And then let's get on with the next song on the radio. It takes time, it takes conversation, and it takes listening. You might notice Matthew 23, he that is greatest among you shall be your servant. And whosoever, this is verse 11, and whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased. And he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. How did you plan on going about humbling yourself, if not by listening to other people and not bragging on yourself? You might notice Matthew 20. Jesus called them unto him and said, this is verse 25, you know that the princes of the Gentiles exercise dominion over them, and they that are great exercise authority upon them. But it shall not be so among you. Whosoever shall be great among you, let him be your minister, servant. And whosoever will be chief among you, let him be your servant. Even as the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life a ransom for many. Just exactly, you've read that passage 100 times about humility. What did you think it meant? These are the things it meant. Jesus was here on this earth for 33 years. And yet, most of what we know about him, he only spent 3 years of that time here on this earth teaching. Did you know that? What do you think he was doing the other 30 years? I think he spent the other 30 years listening, learning about people, caring about them. He listened to an often married woman at the well, didn't dismiss her. He listened to children. He didn't let them shoo away the kids. It was just as important to listen about their T-boil exploits as anything else. He listened to his parents. It was important to hear them. He listened to his enemies. You don't dismiss people just because they're nasty. That nasty neighbor next door, sit and listen. Maybe that's really all your neighbor wants, is somebody to listen to him. You be the one. Listen to him. He listened to his disciples bicker with one another. Let them have it out. Who's going to be greatest among you? Who's going to be on your right hand and your left hand? He listened to them bicker. Listened to them fuss. He was willing to listen. That was the point. 2 final passages, actually 3. In 1 John 3, verse 14. We know that we have passed from death unto life because we love the brethren. He that loveth not his brother abideth in death. What do you think loving your brother is? Whosoever hateth his brother is a murderer, and you know that no murderer hath eternal life abiding in him. When you don't have time, when you don't care, when you're indifferent to someone, do you suppose that's hating them? Hereby perceive we the love of God, because he laid down his life for us. And we ought to lay down our lives for our brethren. You willing to give up that selfishness and just listen to other people? See if you can help them? Whoso hath this world's good, and seeth his brother have need, and shutteth up his bowels of compassion from him, how dwelleth the love of God in him? Boy, wouldn't it be nice if all I had to do was write a check. Here, Here's some money, go away. Do you really think that's the bowels of compassion that's needed? My little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth. And hereby we know that we're of the truth, and shall assure our hearts before him. For if our heart condemn us, God is greater than our heart, and knoweth all things. Another passage in 1 Corinthians 12. Now hath God set the members, every one of them, in the body as it hath pleased him. Everybody isn't 25 years old. Everybody isn't 14 years old. Everybody isn't 60 years old. Everybody isn't intelligent. Everybody isn't white. Everybody isn't male. Everybody isn't female. We all have different positions. If they were all one member, where were the body? But now are they many members, yet but one body. And the eye cannot say unto the hand, I have no need of thee. I don't need you kids. I don't need you old people. Nay, much more those members of the body which seem to be more feeble are necessary. And those members of the body which we think to be less honorable, upon these we bestow more abundant honor, and our uncomely parts have more abundant comeliness. For our comely parts have no need, but God hath tempered the body together, having given more abundant honor to that part which lacked, that there should be no division in the body, but that the members should have the same care one for another. And whether one member suffer, all the members suffer with it, or one member be honored, all the members rejoice with it. Now ye are the body of Christ, and members in particular. And now that passage that I have referred to is in James 1 and verse 19. He says, Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath, swift to hear. It's important to learn the art of caring for people. It's not just a soundbite. It's not just something we do automatically. If you're here tonight and not a Christian, we have need of you. The Lord has need of you. But more importantly, you need him. Come while we stand and sing.
All things are ready.